You've seen the smile 1,000 times. The one that lands the second the spotlight finds him, the second the crowd screams his name, the second the camera zooms in for that perfect close-up. It's effortless. It's warm. It looks like nothing in this world could ever wear this man down. But what if that smile is the single hardest thing he does all night? What if the real story isn't happening on that stage at all, but backstage? In the minutes before he walks out, in the seconds after he walks off, in the quiet moments nobody was ever supposed to see. Because thanks to a brand new documentary, just released by Bangtan, running a full 42 minutes, we finally got a look behind that curtain. And honestly, ARMY, some of what's in this footage is going to change the way you watch every single one of his performances from here on out. Stick with me on this one, because if you're new here, this channel exists to break down exactly these kinds of moments, so go ahead and hit subscribe before we dive in, because we're about to unpack a story that a lot of people are talking about right now, and for very good reason. Because once the algorithm starts feeding you fancam after fancam, thumbnail after thumbnail of him looking flawless under stadium lights, it's genuinely easy to forget that there's a person underneath all of that, one who's just as human, just as tired, just as capable of struggling as anyone else on this planet. This documentary is the closest thing we've gotten in a while to a reminder of that. So let's get into it properly. Let's set the scene first, because context matters here. BTS is currently in the middle of the ARIRANG World Tour, their biggest world tour to date. A massive, sprawling run spanning dozens of cities across multiple continents. This isn't a short victory lap. This is a full-scale, high-intensity global campaign, city after city, stage after stage, with barely any room to breathe in between shows. And the North America leg alone has taken them through stadium run after stadium run, sold-out nights, record-breaking crowds, screaming fans in every single city, and a production so demanding that even seasoned performers would feel the weight of it. This new sketch video, simply titled the North America Part 1 documentary, was filmed specifically to show fans what happens the moment the lights go down, and the cameras that usually capture the polished, perfect version of BTS finally turn off. What we get instead is raw. It's candid. It's 7 guys who have been running on fumes for weeks, holding it together for the people who paid to see them shine. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Jimin quietly becomes one of the most talked about figures in the entire film. It's worth pausing here to actually understand what this tour represents, because it changes how you watch everything that follows. This isn't just another world tour for BTS. This is their return to full scale, all 7 members touring after years of individual schedules, solo projects, and mandatory military service pulling them in different directions. This is the tour fans waited years for, the one that had to happen at a scale big enough to match that weight, and that pressure alone changes the stakes of every single show. When you understand that context, the exhaustion in this documentary hits different. This isn't a group coasting on decades of muscle memory from an easy, well-oiled touring machine. This is 7 men rebuilding that machine in real time, on some of the biggest stages of their careers, in front of some of the largest crowds they've ever performed for, and doing it while the entire world is watching to see if they can still deliver at the level everyone remembers. Spoiler, they can. But this documentary is proof of exactly what that costs them behind the curtain to make it look that easy. Here's where it starts to get real. One of the very first things this documentary shows us is just how fast these costume changes actually have to be. We're talking full outfit switches happening in a matter of minutes while the stadium is still roaring outside and the next song is already counting down. If you've ever wondered how BTS goes from one complete look to a totally different one in what feels like the blink of an eye, this footage finally answers that question. And in the middle of that pressure, Jimin is shown as one of the members who's ready first. While a few of the other members are visibly scrambling to keep up with the pace, Jimin is already dressed, already composed, calm in a room that is anything but calm around him. It's a small moment. It barely lasts a few seconds on screen. But it says something important about who Jimin is when nobody's watching for it. He's not just performing under pressure out on the stage. He's operating like a seasoned professional in the tiny, unglamorous moments that never make it into the final cut of a concert film. And if that kind of behind-the-scenes precision is exactly the kind of content you love seeing, make sure you're subscribed, because we're going deeper into this documentary, and it only gets more interesting from here. Now here's a detail that might surprise you, and honestly, it's one of the more human, relatable pieces of this whole documentary. At one point backstage, the members are shown eating what's described as a kind of herbal wild honey, something they specifically reach for as a quick boost of energy in between the physical demands of the show. Sit with that for a second. These are 7 men performing at a level that requires elite physical stamina, night after night, city after city. And their solution in between sets isn't some flashy energy drink or a dramatic recovery ritual. It's a spoonful of traditional herbal honey, something almost old-fashioned and grounded in comfort. It's a small detail, but it tells you a lot about the reality of touring at this scale. Behind the massive production budgets, the pyrotechnics, and the choreography that looks superhuman from the crowd, there are just tired human bodies trying to refuel however they can, grabbing whatever gives them a few more minutes of energy before they have to go back out there and give everything all over again. And Jimin is right there with the rest of them, in that same room, doing the same thing every single member has to do just to make it through this tour. It's not glamorous. It's not scripted. It's just what it actually takes to survive a schedule like this one. And there's something almost comforting about that. Honestly, for all the technology, all the production value, all the millions of dollars clearly poured into a tour of this scale, the actual solution backstage is still just 7 guys passing around a jar of honey because it works and because it's what they know. And honestly, that's part of what makes this documentary so different from a typical tour vlog. Most fan-facing tour content is built to sell you the fantasy, the perfect lighting, the perfect harmonies, the perfect synchronized choreography that looks like it takes zero effort. This footage does the opposite. It shows you the unglamorous machinery running underneath that fantasy, the small human choices being made minute to minute just to keep the whole thing from falling apart. And once you start noticing those choices, you can't really watch a highlight reel the same way again, because you know now what's actually happening in the minutes the cameras usually cut away from. But it's the next part of the documentary that really gets people talking, and honestly, it's the part that hit me the hardest too. In one of the more relaxed moments backstage, the conversation shifts to something completely unexpected: sleep. RM and Jean are shown casually chatting about morning routines and how everyone sleeps on tour, and the conversation eventually lands on Jimin and Jungkook. According to what's shown, both of them have a habit of falling asleep almost instantly, crashing hard the second they get the chance to rest, practically shutting down from sheer exhaustion. And here's the thing, the other members don't frame this in a worried way in that specific moment. They actually joke about it, almost enviously, calling it deep, good quality sleep, the kind of sleep that means your body is finally getting to switch off completely. On the surface, it sounds like a lighthearted, funny little exchange, the kind of banter you'd expect between close friends who've spent years together on the road. But sit with it for a second longer. Falling asleep that fast, that deeply, that consistently, isn't just a random personality quirk. It's usually a sign of a body that has been pushed close to its limit and is finally getting a chance to recover, even if only for a few hours before the next city. It's the kind of sleep you get after your body has genuinely nothing left to give. And when you put that detail next to everything else in this documentary, it starts to paint a much bigger picture of exactly how demanding this tour has been on all of them, Jimin very much included. If you're starting to feel like this video is hitting a little different than the usual highlight reels and fancam compilations, that's exactly the point. And that's exactly why this channel exists. So if you haven't already, drop a like on this video right now. It genuinely helps more people find breakdowns like this one. And let's keep going, because there's a lot more here. The documentary also gives us a glimpse into the more technical, detail-obsessed side of putting on a show at this scale. There's a moment where the members are discussing stage choreography, and specifically, there's a back and forth about Jimin's positioning during one section of a performance, a quick debate about whether he should be crouching or sitting during a particular part of the set. It sounds like a tiny logistical detail, the kind of thing most fans would never even think about while watching the final polished performance from their seats. But it's actually a great reminder of just how much precision goes into every single second of these shows. Every angle, every position, every transition gets discussed, debated, and fine-tuned, sometimes down to whether someone's body should be positioned slightly differently for a specific beat of a song. And Jimin, ever the professional, engages with this discussion the same way he engages with everything else in this documentary, fully present, fully invested, treating even the smallest detail like it genuinely matters, because to him, Clearly it does. This is someone who has spent years mastering not just how to dance, but how to make every single choice on stage look effortless and intentional at the same time. And these tiny, unglamorous conversations backstage are exactly where that kind of mastery gets built, show after show, city after city. It also tells you something about how this group functions after all these years together. There's no ego in that conversation, no ceremony to it, just direct, practical problem solving between people who trust each other enough to hash out the smallest details in real time, minutes before walking out in front of tens of thousands of people. That kind of trust doesn't happen by accident. It's built over more than a decade of exactly these kinds of unglamorous, unfilmed conversations, and getting even a small glimpse of it here is part of what makes this documentary feel so different from a standard tour recap. Now let's talk about the part of this documentary that ARMY has been discussing the most, because it's the part that turns this whole video from a fun behind-the-scenes look into something a lot more emotional. At one point, there's a moment of genuine concern among the members about Jimin's physical condition. The conversation isn't dramatic or drawn out, it's subtle, the kind of exchange you might miss if you're not paying close attention, but it's there. Word had gone around backstage that Jimin wasn't feeling 100%, that something in his body was bothering him more than usual, and you can see the other members checking in on him, asking how he's holding up. To be clear, this isn't presented in the documentary as some major medical emergency. There's no dramatic breakdown. No one pulls him off stage. It's smaller and quieter than that, just a passing moment of members looking out for each other in a way that feels completely genuine. But it's exactly that quiet, understated concern that makes this footage hit so hard, because it's the kind of moment that never makes it into a highlight reel. And this is where the title of this video comes into focus, the truth behind JiminSmile. Because if you go back and watch his performances from this stretch of the tour, you would never guess any of this conversation happened at all. From the outside, on stage, nothing looks off. The stage never got the memo that something might be bothering him, because he simply didn't let it show. That's the disconnect this documentary quietly exposes. The Jimin that tens of thousands of people see every night, smiling and giving everything he has no idea what a handful of minutes backstage actually looked like before he walked out. And whether or not it was something serious, the fact that his members felt the need to check on him at all tells you something about how physically demanding this leg of the tour has clearly been. It's a small, easy-to-miss exchange if you're not paying attention, but it might honestly be the most telling few seconds in the entire 42 minutes, because it's the one moment where the mask everyone wears on this tour briefly slips, just for the people who already know him best. This is exactly why documentaries like this one matter so much, because they remind us that the polished version of an idol we see on stage is only one half of the story. If content like this is something you want more of, breaking down what's actually happening behind these massive productions, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications turned on, because these documentary drops happen fast, and we like being one of the first to dig into them for you properly. Beyond the emotional core of this documentary, there's also just a genuinely fun, sprawling sense of scale to it. The footage takes us across multiple cities throughout the North America leg, including stops in Tampa, various locations across Latin America and Mexico, and Las Vegas, giving fans a real sense of just how massive and physically demanding this leg of the tour actually is. We're not talking about one or two shows in a controlled environment. We're talking about a rotating, relentless schedule of travel, setup, rehearsal, performance, and teardown, over and over, city after city, with barely any time to properly adjust before the next stop. Watching this stretch of footage, you start to understand the sheer logistics of what a world tour at this level actually requires. It's not just the 2 or 3 hours fans see from their seats. It's the flights, the hotel check-ins at odd hours, a brand new stage every single time, a brand new crowd energy to adjust to, a brand new time zone messing with everyone's internal clock all over again. And through all of that, the members are shown staying locked in, staying professional, and somehow still finding moments to laugh with each other in between all the chaos of travel and setup. That resilience, that ability to keep showing up for each other and for the fans no matter how brutal the schedule gets, is honestly one of the most compelling threads running through this entire documentary, and it's the thread that keeps pulling you back to Jimin specifically, because he seems to be absorbing more of that strain than most, at least based on what this particular documentary chose to show us. Think about what that actually means logistically for a second. Every single one of those cities means a different stage layout to adjust to, a different crew to sync with, a different set of production quirks to account for on the fly. There's no real routine to fall back on, because the routine changes every single night. And somewhere between the traveling, the sound checks, the choreography discussions, and the actual 2-hour show itself, there's maybe a small window to eat, to rest, to just exist as a person for a few minutes before the cycle starts all over again. When you watch the documentary with that in mind, every single one of these small backstage moments starts to carry a lot more weight. The honey isn't just a fun snack, it's a coping mechanism for an exhausting schedule. The fast costume changes aren't just impressive, they're necessary survival skills. The instant, deep sleep isn't just a funny personality trait, it's the body forcing itself to recover in whatever tiny window it's given. None of these moments exist in isolation. They all point toward the same underlying story, a group of performers giving absolutely everything they have to a schedule that leaves almost nothing left over for themselves. And then there's the payoff, the reason all of this exists in the first place, the fans. The documentary captures genuine, unfiltered reactions from the members as they take in the sheer scale of the crowds across North America, the noise, the lights, the sea of people who travel from all over just to be in that stadium for one single night. You can see it register on their faces every single time, that specific kind of disbelief that never quite fades no matter how many stadiums you fill before. And by the end of each show, there are these quieter, more sincere moments where the members express genuine gratitude to the audience, thanking them, acknowledging just how much this level of support means, especially after everything it took just to get back out on the road at this scale in the first place. It's a stark, powerful contrast to everything we've just talked about. The costume changes, the exhaustion, the quiet concern for Jimin's condition, all of it gets funneled into these few minutes on stage where they get to look out at a stadium full of people who showed up for them, and for a moment, you can genuinely see why it's worth it to them every single time, no matter what it costs behind the scenes. It's the kind of moment that no amount of exhaustion, sore muscles, or missed sleep seems to be able to touch. And honestly, that might be the most impressive thing this entire documentary shows us. And that contrast is really the whole emotional engine of this documentary. On one side, you've got exhaustion, quiet pain, sprinting between costume racks, and members quietly checking on each other because something doesn't look right. On the other side, you got tens of thousands of people screaming lyrics back at them under stadium lights, and 7 grown men visibly moved by that every single night, no matter how many times they've experienced it before. Most tour documentaries pick one side of that story to tell. This one, whether intentionally or not, shows you both back to back, close enough together that you can't ignore the gap between them anymore. So here's what this documentary really shows us when you put every piece of it together. It shows a group of performers running on herbal honey and pure willpower, sprinting through costume changes with seconds to spare, falling asleep the instant their bodies get a chance to stop moving, discussing choreography down to the smallest possible detail, and quietly checking in on each other when something feels off. Because that's what almost 4 years apart in a schedule like this one does to 7 people who genuinely care about each other. And at the center of a lot of that story, this time around, is Jimin. Not the version of Jimin hitting a note perfectly under stage lights, but the version who's clearly running on empty backstage, the version his members feel the need to check on, who still somehow manages to smile like none of it is happening the second he steps back into the spotlight. That's the truth this footage quietly reveals. That's the gap between the performance and the person underneath it. And honestly, once you notice that gap, you can't really unsee it. Every future clip of him smiling on stage is probably going to hit a little differently for you from here on out, isn't it? If this breakdown gave you a new appreciation for everything happening behind the scenes of his tour, let us know in the comments what stood out to you the most, whether it was the sleep story, the costume change chaos, or that quiet moment of concern about his condition, because we genuinely read every single one of them, and it shapes exactly what we cover next on this channel. And if you haven't already, this is your sign to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're going to keep digging into every single documentary, every fan cam, and every behind-the-scenes detail this tour gives us. And trust me, based on what part 1 just showed us, whatever comes next is going to be worth the wait. And one more thing before you go. If you've been on the fence about clicking subscribe this whole video, let this be the moment that pushes you over, because we cover these breakdowns fast, we cover them thoroughly, and we always try to separate what's actually shown on screen from what's just speculation floating around online. That matters more than people think in this fandom, and it's exactly what we're committed to doing every single time we sit down to make one of these. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourselves out there, and we'll see you in the next one.